User data is now anonymized by default in Admin Center reports and the graph reporting API output. This may impact your application. Hello, I'm Tom Morgan. One of the things I like to do with this channel is make sure you are kept aware of things that will impact you as a Teams developer, but also kind of more broadly, a Microsoft Graph developer, an IT admin, and anyone who works with both Microsoft Graph and Microsoft Teams platform. This is one of those things that you will want to be aware of. If you're an ISV, if you write your own software, if you access Graph, even if you just use the Teams Admin Center, this is an important change that you need to be aware of. Okay, so what's the change? First of all, in reports, and I'm going to come back to what that means in a minute, but for Microsoft 365 in reports, user identifiable data, so user names, group names, site names, by default will no longer be shown identifiable. So they're going to be scrambled, they're going to be pseudo-anonymized, which I'm going to come back to as well, but you won't be able to use them to identify who the person is or anything like that. So this is going to impact, is already impacting the reports that you see in the Admin Center, the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, the reports that you see in the Teams Admin Center, so the analytics and reporting, and also the usage report data that you see in Microsoft Graph. Now, this is the big one for me. So this is the stuff on the /reports endpoint. It's both 1.0 and beta, and it's already taking place. The reason it's already taking place, there was a blog post. Let me share my screen so you can see what I'm seeing. There was a blog post that was put out on the 30th of August saying that from September the 1st, we're going to, by default, anonymize this user level data. So why is this important? Well, if you're an application developer, then you might be reliant on that UPN data. You might, it might mean something to you. You might be looking for specific keys. You might be doing stuff with it. You might be taking that UPN and looking at backup in Graph to find out more information, to kind of correlate that information with other information. You're no longer going to be able to do that by default. So this is a thing you can turn off, and I'm going to come to that in a minute. But by the default, I'm going to keep saying it. If you don't do anything to a tenant, that stuff is going to get anonymized. So you're not going to be able to do that anymore. So your application might break if you are doing things like making calls to the /reports endpoint, taking the UPN and doing something with it in some way other than just storing it and displaying it. If you're just storing it and displaying it, it'll probably be okay. But if you're doing any kind of analysis with it, if you're using it to kind of correlate or look up or condition or anything like that, it's not going to work because it's been replaced with a big GUID. Let me show you. This is from my blog post I did about it. Here's an example. So this is how it now looks. This is the before down here. You can see my email address here under the user principal name. Sorry, it's not it is my email address, but it's also my UPN under user principal name. This is how it's now going to look by default. So this big, not quite a GUID because it's too long, this big string. Coming down to the Teams Admin Center, this is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see this, but here, these are those same big long strings, they, replacing the display name. So that's what's happened. It's all happened quite quickly. It's kind of rolling out now, I imagine. I see it in my tenant, but that doesn't really mean anything. It may be instant, it may be rolling out, it may already be in your tenant. Few things. So why is this happening? Privacy is the main one, as you might imagine, user privacy. So Microsoft have choices to make about, what their default should be. They've decided to kind of enforce this by default for user privacy reasons, which makes sense. Like I say, they've given admins the ability to turn it off, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But their default position has gone privacy first, kind of almost at the expense of functionality first. I think that, they're accepting that some stuff might not work temporarily, but then people will work around it, or temporarily admins might turn this thing off whilst solutions and scripts and everything get updated, and they can turn it back on again. But for now, so that's the reason they're doing it. And for now, that's the balance Microsoft have chosen to make. All right, so what if you don't want this anymore? You've seen it, you understand it, you know the reasons for it, but you still don't really want it. You want to be able to turn it off either forever or just temporarily. Maybe you've got some solutions that really rely on that data being there, and you want to turn it off for a couple of weeks to give your solution providers time to kind of work around the problem. So there is a way of turning it off, but it's tenant level and it affects everything. It affects the reports and the APIs all in one go. There's one switch to turn off. So you need to be a global administrator, and this is what you need to do. So in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, you need to go to settings, you need to go to org settings, you need to scroll down until you find reports. And here is the section. This is the checkbox you're looking for here under reports. In all reports, display de-identified names for users, groups, and sites. So this is checked by default for me, and that's what the blog post says, so I imagine for you as well. So you can uncheck that, you can click save. The change takes place immediately. So this isn't one of those changes where you have to wait a really long time for. The change takes place instantly, certainly for me. I was making an API call, I made the change, I made the API call, the data changed. It was that quick. So, and also the same actually in the admin center. So hopefully, if you do need to make this change, you don't have to wait a long time for it to happen. I think that's kind of everything I want to tell you. Other than just to show you, I can show you actually the Teams admin center. This is with the de-identified names here, the GUIDs and the names. You notice I did just change that setting. So I should be able to just refresh this page now. This might be a bad idea to try. I should have tried this before already. Let's just do it live because, why not? To see that the change takes place instantly. Yep, you can see here the display name is now showing the identifiable name with the link to the account as well. So it is really quick to change. You can make that change really quickly if you need to. You can toggle it on and off if you need to as well. But yeah, just be aware that by default that has happened. It's happened quite quickly. There is one big switch to turn it off. Unfortunately, there isn't a way to do it by application or APIs only and not reports, or for a particular group of users. It's on or off basically. So I know that for some big companies who are cross region and cross different boundaries, that is going to be tricky because different rules apply in different places. I get that, but for now, yeah, there's just one big switch for on or off. Okay, I hope that's been useful. If you want more information, go and check out my blog post about it. Go and check out Microsoft's blog post about it. Leave me comments. If you've got questions, you can find me on Twitter. I hope this has been a useful piece of information for you. If it is, consider subscribing to this channel. I try and do these for anything I think you'll find interesting, as well as trainings and how-tos and information and all that sort of stuff. So if that sounds useful, then please consider subscribing because it really makes a difference. I hope you haven't got too much rework to do in the next few days if you're an ISV or a solution provider. But regardless, I hope you have a good day, whatever it is you're doing, and I'll speak to you again next time.